Okay, today this is circumference and area of a circle. This is 10.4. And we want to look at the parts of the circle that we're going to need to know about for today. The first part is the center of the circle. It's the point in which all the other points are the equal distance from that point. So any point I find on this circle, if I measure that, it's the same distance. That measurement is actually called the radius. The distance from the center to any point on the circle is a radius. Okay, the diameter is the distance across the circle that goes through the center. So as you can see, the diameter is twice the length of the radius, or the radius is half of the diameter. Okay. Um, Today with circumference and area, we're going to have two formulas. Circumference is basically the distance around the circle. It's when we're looking at perimeter for rectangles and triangles and things like that, we add all the sides. We can't really add all the sides for a circle because it has an infinite number of sides. So we have to use a formula to get that. And because we're finding the area and circumference of a circular object, we are definitely using pi today. So our first formula, C equals pi times d, that's the circumference. C equals 2 pi r is also for circumference. Notice that 2 times the radius is equal to the diameter. So it doesn't matter which one you use. If you're given the radius, multiply it by 2, then multiply it by pi. If you're given the diameter, just simply multiply it by pi. So circumference equals, now this one deals with the radius. They want us to find the radius. So it's going to be 2 times pi times r. Okay, 70 is their circumference. We've got 2 pi r. Okay, well, we're going to actually, we're going to substitute pi, 3.14 for pi. Okay, so we're going to multiply 2 times 3.14. That's going to be 6.28 times r. Then we just simply divide both sides by 6.28. I did 2, but it's supposed to be an 8. And we got 70, let me get a calculator, 70 divided by 6.28, and we get 11.15. We're going to round it to the nearest inch, so it's just 11 inches. Next one, diameter of a circle is 28. Find the circumference to the nearest foot. Okay, C equals pi times d, so C equals 3.14 times 28. Okay, 3.14 times 28, that equals 87.92. We're going to round that to 88 feet. Okay, and it's circumference, so it's just perimeter. It's not square units, it's just regular units. The circumference of a circle is 186. Find the radius. So again, we got 186 equal to 2 times 3.14 times r. Remember, for finding the radius, use this formula, the one with the radius in it. If you use this one, you'll have to take half of your answer because you're finding the diameter there. So 186 equals 6.28 times r. If we divide both sides by 6.28, we're solving for r. We get 29.6. We're going to round that to 30 centimeters. And it is circumference. There's no need to put a square unit on there. Okay, area is the product of pi and the square of the radius, which means area is equal to pi times r squared. So in this one, we have to have the radius. We don't want the diameter, we want the radius. Okay, so if we're going to use the formula here, pi r squared, notice we're given the diameter. So we have to use the radius. The radius is half of the diameter, so it's pi times 13 squared. Okay, so that is really 3.14 times 13 squared. Now remember, you have to square 13 before you multiply by 3.14 or your answer is going to be wrong. So if I square 13, I get 169. 169 times 3.14 is 530.66. That is area. It is feet, so it's square feet. Okay, again, A equals pi times r squared, which equals 3.14 times 14 squared, which equals 3.14 times 196. 196 times 3.14 equals 615.44, and it is square inches. Okay, last one. Pi r squared is equal to area pi is 3.14. The radius is 5. We want to square that, so we get 25 times 3.14. That equals area. So 25 times 3.14, that gives us 78.5 yards square, or square yards. Okay, that's dealing with area. Let's look at some other problems. Now we want to solve some for unknowns here. Here we have the area is 1,567, and that equals to pi times r squared. Okay, we want to know what r is. We're going to solve for r. Now we're going to substitute 3.14 for pi, and then we're going to solve. Okay, so I have something times r squared equals 1567. The first step would be to get rid of that something, which is 3.14. And I'm writing a little crooked. This tablet's a little odd for me to write on. So 1567 divided by 3.14. That gives us 499.04. That equals r squared. Now the last step is to get rid of the square. You do that by taking the square root, if you remember from last chapter. So if we take the square root, we actually get 22, and I'm rounding off to the hundredths, 0.34. Actually, I guess I'm supposed to round the nearest whole number if I read the instructions. So that would just be 22. And it is 22 inches. Okay? Let's look at another one. The area is 59 feet squared. We want to know the diameter. Well, we have to find the radius before we can find the diameter. Okay, so we're going to substitute 3.14 for pi. We're going to divide both sides by 3.14. So that gives us 59 divided by 3.14, which is 18.79. I'm just going to the hundredths when I do this. Okay, then I have to take the square root of both sides, and I get, and I'm rounding off to the nearest whole number, I get 4. Okay, and it is 4 feet. Now remember, usually when you're solving equations, you get a plus and minus. With these, today, since we're dealing with a distance, we only want the positive answer. So no plus and minus, for those of you who actually remember that. This one, 197. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the radius. We were finding the diameter. Almost forgot that. Radius is 4, so the diameter is 8. So that'd be 8 feet. Almost messed that up. Okay, so next one we are finding the diameter. Have to remind me, if you could, to multiply by 2 when I'm finished. 3.14 times r squared. I'm going to divide both sides by 3.14. So 197 divided by 3.14. That gives me 62.74 if I round it off. Take the square root. I get 7.92, which is going to be 8. So if the radius is 8, the diameter is 16, and it's going to be centimeters. Okay, don't forget that. If you're looking for diameter, double the radius once you find it. Okay, you saw me make that mistake. Find the area of the figure. Well, we've got two things we're looking at. We're looking at this thing, then we're looking at this half circle. This is a half circle. Okay, this is just a rectangle. That's base times height. So the area of that is equal to 4 times 8.25. So let's multiply that first and see what we get. We get 33. So this first one is 33 in its square feet, because we're in area. Now the second one, area is equal to pi r squared. Well, this is the radius, because this is a half circle. Here's the center. The distance from the center to the edge is 2 feet, which is the radius. So it's going to be 3.14 times 2 squared. Okay, which is going to be 3.14 times 4. So 4 times 3.14, that gives us 12.56 feet squared. If we add 33 to that, we should get 45.56 feet squared. And we are finished with this. Again, oh, whoa. Again, I did something very bad. I can't believe I'm making all these mistakes today. This is a half circle. I found the area of the whole circle. Okay, you have to take half of this. So let's fix this. Maybe you see me making the mistakes, you won't make them yourself. This is a half circle, so I have to take half of this for the area. So this is actually going to be 6.28 feet squared for the circle. Okay, now I can add these together. I get 39.28 square feet. That should be our answer. Okay, and it's a good thing we're finished, so I can't make any more mistakes today. Hopefully that helped.